So, Johnny, anything else you have on that topic? Because that planning topic is a huge thing that comes up. But does that help you?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I guess it gives me a lot to think about. I mean, some of the things that I get complaints about are, that we'll plan something out, it won't go right, and the fingers start pointing, and they're like, you get, well, we didn't plan this quite right, and or I didn't spend enough time on it, but then you get complaints from the other side that says, well, we're not doing enough, we're spending too much time planning. So that's where I was trying to figure out is how to strike a balance between the two. So because obviously the product owner wants you to move faster.
Right. I have a question for you. Do you treat the sprint backlog like it's something that needs to be baselined?
Uh, it's usually done for me, but yes.
So, hence a problem, maybe an agile smell, because what you're saying to me is that you have a sprint backlog that has been planned for you. Now, who's planning it for you?
the the product owner when the product owner has a person above them kind of putting pressure on them to get a product out, something that they can show even people further up the food chain.
So now here's my question. If I was to just peel that back a little bit, my first statement is the development team makes their own commitment, right? We would agree with
Yes.
that as scrum masters, as agilists in general. The people that do the work make the commitment. So we can agree to that. But now they
Yeah.
have powers that be that have said it's not going to work that way. Okay? So now what position do you put the development team into where their hands are kind of tied? There's not much that they can do. Okay?
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to try to address this a little different because now I need to, at least what I would do, is I would start working now with the PO. So I'll ask you, Johnny, is the PO open to working with you to help solve this problem?
I believe so, but there's a little bit of deflection where the PO will say, "I'm getting pressure that we need we need something more than we're providing."
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
So I have an idea for you that I think will help in this situation. And this is something that I would actually do. This is something that I do normally in the beginning, is what I start thinking about immediately. It's almost like I want to write something on the board. The question that you have to ask yourself is this, Johnny, and I'll ask you this question. So, are you measuring return on investment?
yes,
Okay.
I think
What
that's
does that
part of the
mean?
problem.
Okay. Now,
Yeah, because
go ahead.
right, because the higher ups are looking at, well, we spent this much time, this much effort, we're expecting some return at some arbitrary point in time.
Okay. Now, here's the deal. Let's break this down so I can make sure you have a real clear understanding of something that's really important. Hopefully, you have heard of the 80-20 rule. I'm going to assume that you haven't. Okay? And I'm assuming that you haven't, even though I'm believing that you have. I'm assuming that you haven't just to help everybody else out. Okay? There's something that exists in the world called Pareto's Law, where out of 20% of the work, you get 80% of the value. Okay? And so you want to find that 20% that gives you the most value. That way you can maybe redirect the other 80% of the time to other things that are more valuable than the stuff that you would have been doing anyway. Okay? Now, in our world, we have concepts that exist. Let's just call these concepts requirements that fit into a sprint, user stories, and requirements that don't necessarily fit in a sprint, even though there are other rules around that, epics. And there's normally a parent-child relationship between these big requirements and these little requirements, okay? The problem that we have in our world is we classically don't get return on investment from the little requirements. So those little requirements, we classically don't get any return on investment from, okay? We classically get the return on investment from the big requirement or the epic. Okay, so hear me and understand where I'm taking you right now. What I would want you to do with that product owner is find ways to split. When I say split, I mean break down into smaller pieces. To split those big requirements, those epics, in a way where you can get you can find that 80-20 sweet spot. While that smaller number of items, you can get the majority of the return on investment. Now, why do I say that? Because what you can start doing is you can start filling your sprints up with the most valuable stuff that needs to be put out there. By filling your sprints up with that most valuable stuff that needs being releases, now you are front loading ROI in your sprints. And by front loading ROI, that means when it's time to release, they still can get the value even though you're not delivering as many items as what everybody wants to deliver. Because there's not going to be a single team on a planet that every single sprint going to get everything done. It's just not going to happen. Well, I lie. Because if they undercommit, they will always get everything done. And so you can put them in a position where they are undercommit. But that's not what I want you to do. I actually want you to work with the PO. I do want you to work with the PO. Now, I want you to work with the PO in a way where you can take those requirements and address them. Now, let's just say an example that I give in my training, okay? It's normally a simple example, which is beneficial, okay? Let's just say I have a story or an epic that is, I want to pay for the items in my shopping cart, okay? Now, you can split that based on how you're going to deliver it, and nobody would recommend that. Front end, back end, whatever. Let's just pretend like you're not going to do that, okay? But if that happens, then you got to wait till everything's done before you get the value, okay? You could split it based on, let's just say, collection of customer details, shipping information, collection of payment, processing payment. You know, all those things give you value, but guess what doesn't happen? You still have to get everything done before the customer can actually use it, before you can actually put it in front of them, right? In terms of being used. Or you can split it based on ways you're going to pay, like a credit card, a gift card, let's say cryptocurrency. Well, if you split it that way, you probably could just figure out which one of those three things the majority of your customers actually utilize. And all things being equal, I may be able to pull that one out and find that 80-20 sweet spot without doing everything. That's a simple example, but that gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. So the magic for you is likely going to be working with your PO to address and figure out, is there a way you can glean value out of those big requirements or epics? So and then you can make sure that when you're delivering stuff, that is the highest value stuff. Now, how is this helpful? Because let's just say you take a big requirement, an epic, and you divide it down into 5 pieces, and 2 of those pieces are the most important. That's 40%, right? All things being equal. You move those to the top of the product backlog, right?
Yep.
And then you take the next one and you find that 3 of them are the most important. That get you the value that you're looking, get you the 80-20, even though it's not an exact 80-20. You got another 5, but again, 2 of those you ain't really got to deal with. 3 of them you're going to put toward the top of the product backlog, right? You find another epic where there's one of them gives you the majority of the value and the other four doesn't, right? You just put that one toward the top of the product backlog. Now, what have I done? Look, I'm not expecting to get every single epic. I'm not expecting to get everything in epic done in the first place, right? I'm never expecting to be 100% on epics, and some people do expect that. I'm expecting to get the most value out that epic and bleed it dry, of value first. If they want me to do the additional stuff, I have no problem doing that, but I'm going to bleed it dry. I'm going to bleed it dry as best I can in terms of getting value out of it. So that is a very important set of steps that I would want you to take. But that is going to require a lot of focus time with that product owner. Really, really is. Okay? So Johnny, my question for you is, have you tried that?
No, I mean that's something that I definitely am considering. I mean, building a much closer relationship and trying to work together to get the most value out of it. Because a lot of times it's like the product owner says, "I need this, this, and this," and we're not really working together, and he's just kind of dictating what. Yes, it is a little frustrating. So we need to start building that relationship better and spending more time together. I think is key. Is going to be key.
Now, here's what I'm gonna ask you to do as a scrum master, right? I'm gonna ask you to
Yes.
put yourself in their shoes because you have to understand where they're sitting at, right? They have management that's saying, "I need this right now." They have a
Right.
team that's not delivering that right now, and they're sitting in the middle with no control, man. This is the position that they're in. They're in the
Yes.
middle with
Yes.
no control. So what do you expect them to do? They can't really go to management and say no, no. They can't really do that,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So now the
Correct.
only thing that they can do is take it out on the team.
Hmm.
So understand the position that they're in, and now the question is, if you was in their position, what would you do? It's likely you would do the same thing that they're doing. We have
Yeah.
this tendency to think to ourselves and to be in our little scrum world and be doing all our little scrum stuff and think nobody else exists on the planet, and that's just not true. But just think about the position that that product owner is in. I've been given this money to get some ROI, and we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not doing that at all. And you know what? It doesn't look like we're going to get it done. We keep having all these problems. They're still not delivering. They keep making commitments and they can't get that stuff done for
Hmm.
real. So now you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to drive them. I'm going to be a tyrannical project manager, and I am going to take them and pull them to this goal, right?
Right.
Most management already know you ain't going to get everything done. They already know that. So the idea though is if you start working closer with that product owner, and if I was you, so an experiment, okay? An experiment, okay? I would go ahead and actually think about a future sprint. Maybe after a particular release or whatever that is. And make that future sprint that time we're going to try these different types of requirements, this different way of splitting things, okay? So and then you're not under pressure for the very next sprint. So and then you kind of start preparing yourself for, kind of almost letting a little bit of that pain go at some future date. And that way
Hmm.
you're not turning everything over at one time. So I think if you run that experiment, you go and get to know that product owner better. You spend some time with that product owner in the world of requirements. It does mean you probably will have to understand the product a little bit better. It does mean you're probably gonna have to figure out how to help with and guide them through. One of the things that I will make sure is available publicly for everybody is we created a splitting strategies guide that actually has 11 different strategies on splitting epics, and
Okay.
that might be helpful for you. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
does that answer your question?
Yeah, because there's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot to digest. I mean, we talked about quite a bit of stuff. So, no, absolutely. There's some really good points in there, and
Okay,
I'm going to try to incorporate that into my into managing the project with the product
okay,
owner.
great.
Cool.
Johnny, I appreciate your time. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and come back and let us know how it goes, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you,
Thank
Devin.
you. Have a good one.
You too.